Our next speaker is Richard Tarboton. Richard is Director of the Energy and Carbon at BT. When you consider that BT purchased 0.7% of the total energy supply in the UK, we'll be hearing from somebody who's right at the coalface. BT has been ranked in the top of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index 7 years running, and Richard's going to tell us how BT managed its energy spend from the perspective of how they started with MAC curves, but going into the returns that they've achieved in energy efficiency.
Good. Is this working? Good.
Yeah.
So I don't have any slides. You'll be pleased to know you'll have a break from slides for the next 5 minutes. I'll tell you a bit about what we're doing in BT and why energy is important in BT. I'll go through the journey we've been on and then go into some of the examples of energy efficiency investments we've made and finally conclude with what we think are the 3 most important things for success in this space. So BT, thanks for the introduction, Jim. One of the key things is that we use a lot of energy. So energy efficiency is really important to us. We have an energy bill of over £200 million a year. So looking at any way in which you can reduce that bottom line cost is vitally important to the company. So too is our commitment to reducing our carbon emissions. And BT's had a very long history in looking at sustainability. In fact, we've been measuring our carbon footprint on Scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, partly on Scope 3, mostly on Scope 1 and 2, since 1996-97. And we've got a target to reduce our UK carbon emissions by 80% by 2016 from the 1996-97 baseline year. So carbon reduction is really important to the company, but the thing which has really driven this program forward has been cost reduction, reducing cost, driving down how much energy we consume in the company. We're faced with a marketplace that's exploding in terms of the services that we are delivering to our customers. More and more data is needed. More and more electronics means more and more electrons flowing down cables. More fibre networks are being rolled out in the UK by BT. So we've got an underlying growth in energy consumption running through the business. So there's always a challenge to counteract that growth and, in fact, try and reduce the cost on top of that. So going back 4 years, when I joined BT, we set up what was called the Energy and Carbon Unit. We looked at a whole range of things we could do. I can remember in one of the first workshops with my team suggesting to them that the thing we needed to do was to get a crack team on this and get the team to go from site to site each day, visiting a new site and auditing all the things that could be saved in terms of energy consumption on each site, following them up with an execution team that would come in behind them and just deliver all the stuff to each site. So the team pointed out to me that actually this possibly wasn't the best strategy. It would take us 17 years to get to all 6,000 sites if we did one a day. So we had to think of something which was a bit more rational, logical, and scalable. And so we looked at, across the whole business, setting up various teams. We created sponsors in the organization who could drive delivery of those teams. We got each team to produce a set of concepts, develop them into business cases, put them onto a MAC curve, and ranked about 60 opportunities, top to bottom, ranging from about £900 per tonne savings to about £300 per tonne cost on our MAC curve, and had an overall roadmap out to 2016 on how we could deliver our 80% target. However, it didn't go much more than that in terms of decision making. The MAC curve was useful to chart the overall journey. What was then needed was business case by business case, expert analysis, argument, rationalization in front of our CFO to try and get them to invest in each one of these projects, project by project. What was then needed was execution on each project once they get approved, and that proves always to be a very big challenge in a large organization. We've used something called AIM, which is Accelerated Implementation Methodology, where we look at ways in which we can set up sponsors in the organization at the MD level, and each sponsor then drives through a series of programs which my team, the Energy and Carbon Unit, basically act as the program management office measuring, monitoring, controlling, and driving accountability across the organization for each of those projects to be delivered. So the MAC curve was useful in that it created this overall picture, but when it came to the detail, it was business case by business case where the detail needed to come through. Some of the problems we had with MAC curves were looking at NPVs, looking at discount rates, which change depending on the project. So different projects have different risks, so they need different discount factors being applied to them. If you're looking at whether you should do one project or another to achieve a certain target, it's difficult to know whether you should put your NPV at that target time frame or whether you should put it to its equipment lifetime, so 8 years versus 25 years. A whole range of those complicated issues existed within the detail, which the MAC curve tends to just blanket over, and a CFO actually doesn't, I feel, see much point in the MAC curve. What they would like to see is what each business case is delivering in terms of cost savings versus investment. A few of the results then, just to take you through some examples of what we've achieved in the last 3 years. So firstly, the most important result that we've achieved is we've turned the corner. So BT's energy consumption was going up at 3.5% per year for about 7 years. In the last 2 years running, we've been able to get energy to come down for the company as a whole by 2% last year and by 2.2% this year. So that's about a 5% reduction year on year, which is about a £20 million saving per annum so far. We've got an aim to get to about £60 million worth of savings per annum over the next 3 years. Some of the investments we've made, we're investing about £14 million in a building energy management system covering about 1,200 buildings across the UK. This is state-of-the-art wireless technology, being able to monitor and control all the temperature variables in every zone within our largest buildings, the 1,200 largest buildings that we operate. So each room has a temperature sensor located in each zone in that room. We have the air handling units connected to a central control unit, which looks at algorithms that compare outside air temperatures to inside air temperatures. And building by building, we're able to control all of those variables remotely through a central control system. We're looking at installing, as a next level of investment on top of that, what we are calling an integrated energy management system that will connect another 700 buildings which have other forms of building management already existing in those buildings, connected all together into one overall connected network, which we think will be probably the largest energy control network in Europe, and being able to control all of those buildings remotely from one central point. So that's about 2,000 buildings all being controlled through one energy network. That in itself should be saving us in the region of about £8 to £9 million per year. That's first order savings. The key thing with energy investment is you actually get a lot more savings through just monitoring and controlling what you're doing. And really the first thing which we did, even before doing any of these investments, was just get a real handle on the data, measuring and controlling every single site across our 6,000 buildings. Being able to tell how much energy is being consumed in each site is really the fundamental building block on which you can then start to build business cases, build investment cases. So if I was to characterize it into those 3 stages, it's all about data control and measurement initially, switching off things which you don't need to run. We've switched off about 2,000 servers this year in data centers. That's about a £1.5 million saving. And we've switched off a lot of components and cards which are in our network, which don't need to run, where we can optimize and pull cards out of servers. We've saved about £4 million by doing that. So that's the first thing, all about data control and management of consumption. The second thing is about smart control, is what we would call it, which is remotely controlling buildings, remotely controlling all the variables that have an impact on energy consumption in a building. And the third thing is equipment replacement. So we've replaced about 300 fans this year in various buildings. We've replaced a whole number of pieces of equipment with variable speed drives to drive energy savings. That's about a £2.5 million investment, delivering £1.5 million worth of savings. We've been replacing boiler controls where the old controls have been inefficient. Heating systems we've been replacing. Those kind of equipment investments are all delivered on a business case by business case basis through our investment committees, who then decide whether we can go ahead and deliver those projects. So just in summary then, I would say if we were to summarize what are the success factors of what we've been doing, the MAC curve has contributed to the overall journey, but really the success is more coming through getting a control of how much energy we are consuming firstly. Secondly, being able to deliver really good business cases. Within my team, we've had to really build up that capability of business case delivery. In fact, our CFO said a few months back that we were the best in the business in business case design and delivery for their decision making. So that's the kind of success factor that I think is key. And then finally, the last element of success has got to be execution. So even if you've got the best MAC curve, you've got the best business cases, you've got to execute. And our real key to execution has been sponsorship at a senior level, getting senior level sponsors accountable for delivering certain targeted programs. So I'll leave it at that for questions later. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Well, for me, you'll talk about really good business cases is the critical part, and clearly you're doing that very well.